directly there, right? I get the people who are around 61st and Patrick.
I'm in front of Darlington, it's gonna have some kind of a bleed-through effect into my community as well, which is why.
What street are you, how many blocks away are
I'm
you?
about 10 blocks away, I'm at 63rd and Duke. But the reason I was even raising my hand just a second ago is because just today, like an hour and a half ago, I was
Yeah.
walking with my kids through Redwood Park. And we happened to come across 3 kids to go to Mount Scott Learning Center. And the subject just came up organically. I was playing with my kids, like Power Rangers and all this business. I wasn't even thinking about the shelter. And these kids brought it up to me, and they're concerned. Like this, they said, oh, when we go to that school that's opening, or the school that's by that shelter that's opening up. I'm like, oh, by the 7-Eleven? And then they said, yeah, we're kind of scared about it. And these are a 13, a 14, and a 16-year-old.
Across the street from it.
It is. And so, I mean, whatever plans are being made to engage that school
let
in
me tell you
of security.
Yeah, I'm not going to pretend that this is just great hunky-dory. We need to keep working on these concerns. But I do hear from the principal, not myself. I heard from a conversation somebody had with him. You know, he was alarmed. He's now at the steering committee, so I think you're going to. He's trying to figure out how to make the best of this. He made 2 interesting comments. One was when he was going to move in, because it's an alternative high school, he didn't feel very welcome in the community. And, you know, he understands how this is because he has felt on that end of it. The other thing he said is, I'm really looking forward to having opportunities for internships with my kids to help. And the Willamette Center has like Boy Scouts coming in and putting up the bike rack and things like that. He said, you know, part of it is, I want my kids to say, whoa, we better stay on track because you could end up down and out like this if you, but he said it's good, the experiential learning. So I think he's trying to make the best of
Well, there's
it.
ways to teach that morality that are a little bit less dangerous
Yeah.
as opposed to putting them in contact with people that might be high-level sex offenders at a low barrier shelter. That's the only thing that keeps going through the back of my mind.
Well, they might not be.
They might not be, but they might
They
still
could
be.
just be homeless because they got priced out of their apartment.
There is a chance of that, but we have to look at the worst-case scenario, like what could feasibly happen. And that's just, I mean, I love my kids, and I'm a very compassionate person, but when you put this type of facility in the middle of a place where they could be putting, you know, dangerous people in close proximity to kids and marginalized populations.
And that's what I object to. I object to people jumping to those conclusions and making those assumptions. They always say that the homeless people are drug addicts, mentally ill, and they're putting them right next to my kids, right next to my school. There's no proof of that. You don't know who's going to be in those shelters. You don't know what kind of...
It could be in those
It
shelters.
could be, but then again, it could not be. You don't know what their
That's
vetting
right.
system is. You haven't talked to the folks that are going to run the center. You haven't gone in and inspected it. That's my big challenge.
But I also think a lot of those people, yes, some of the sex offenders might be in homes, but a lot of these people are on the streets now. So that's why I've been a little curious about the lens thing. You know, to be honest, I'm like, wow, because you've got Springwater Corner, you got a lot of homeless. I mean, I know these districts, I go walk the streets, I canvass. I know it's a huge problem. Here's an opportunity to house people, which is why I'm saying
This is
people.
not an opportunity. Those people on the trails do not want to move into shelters. And they're not going to, they're not going to.
Some are not, and this is a really hard.
99% of are not. I've talked to.
This is why Smith was used in jail where you had a campground out there where they could go out there.
And I do think looking for, we need all kinds of solutions. We need all kinds of solutions. We need some shelters that connect people to services. I think that we should be designating places, of course, I'm not a city official, right, I'm the state, but I am a resident here. I think that we need to designate city places where people can put tents, because some people don't want to be in a big, you know, with lots of people. We need to provide different opportunities that are as low impact as possible, that ideally meet their needs as much as possible, bring some services, help people get the help they need, and
Make sure there's nice big parking lots for all the dealers parking so they can go out and pick up their drugs.
well, and try to get
in front of
treatment.
my house. They're dealing in front of my house. I'm tired of watching it.
Yeah.
So take them over to Southwest Portland and let them live with them for 15 years.
I agree.
Give
Well,
us
there
a
are,
break.
I mean,
We're losing valuable
We'd like to see about half of
out
them
of
go
our
to Wheeler.
community because of what's on the MUP and what's walking up and down our street 24 hours a day. We've got people moving out.
I agree, these are really big problems. I mean, I do see our trying to have more shelters as a way of
But
trying
they're
to
not
connect
going to
people.
shelters.
Well,
These
not
people
all
don't
of
want
them,
shelters.
but some do. These are, I mean, there
Yeah,
are more
but
than
when you
one.
categorize
Not
some,
the majority.
you're not talking 99%, you're talking one.
There's
That would be your
there's
sum.
waiting lists for these shelters, which is why I think we need to open more. And there are people that want help. There are people.
Waiting list in the winter.
Sure, they want help, they want more drugs.
Well, I feel that we should, then maybe we have to look at it from the mental health thing and get the health
Absolutely.
control. Start there.
And put the blame where it comes from. The medical fields, the pharmaceutical companies, the hospitals, the doctors, every one of them. I mean, the pharmaceutical companies, they have absolutely no
Yeah,
problem.
no crunches, yeah.
They have no problem paying doctors outrageous spiffs.
I don't-
They make
I
more
agree.
money on
I agree.
spiffs
And
than
so
they make
those
on
are other
wages.
problems, you're
Those
right.
are
I
other
mean,
problems.
oh, we
That's not-
passed opioid legislation, you would appreciate some of those. I mean, we are trying to get on top of the opioid epidemic and not allow doctors to prescribe more than
Well, make
7
them
years.
pay for it.
Yes,
Hey,
that,
go to the
another,
pharmaceutical company and say, hey, you give this damn doctor $10 for every damn pill he pushes.
that
$2
is,
of it goes to us.
you know what, we are considering a bill like that where we put a tax on opioids that would go toward treatment.
Well, no, don't put a tax on it, take it out of the doctor's pockets, they could care
Well,
less.
and we're
They're gonna pass
limiting
it on.
doctors' ability to prescribe. You know, there's no one silver bullet, this is really
Yeah.
hard. I want your suggestions, but we gotta get on top of the opioid. We gotta prevent people from getting addiction. Part of that is just some of it. Some is genetic predisposition, some is trauma in early childhood. We need to get on top of early childhood. I mean, there's so many different pieces.
Well, when
Sorry.
I was in San Francisco recently, and in Civic Center, there was this group of men and women, and they had certain shirts on, and they were picking up hypodermics, they were picking up all kinds of stuff. One guy was smoking, he said, you can't smoke a cigarette with your shirt on, so he had to take his shirt off. I mean, and I was talking to the fellow who was a supervisor, and I said, well, how do they get paid? These are all homeless people. And they get gift cards, they get, well, whether it's for Walmart or
For picking up trash.
for picking up trash, they had to work 4 hours. But they gave them a sense of purpose. And I was talking to some of the folks.
Good idea.
There-
I love
there-
it.
there-
I agree.
there
I
is-
agree.
You have a sense of pride.
Yeah.
I mean, they have housing, they have certain things that, privileges that they have to work with.
That is something I really like, one of the
I mean,
things
you have
that,
to,
I
yeah.
love that. And there's a project in
This is in San Francisco, so I.
yeah, there's a project in Richmond called the Delaney or Delancey.
Delaney Street. Well,
Delaney Street,
yeah, well, yeah,
or maybe it's San Francisco.
that's San Francisco.
Okay, and then Chrysalis in LA, where they have a contract with the Department of Transportation where they do street cleaning. There's other places that, you know, I'm sure you've seen, you know, in Austin and various places where they do trash pickup. Central City Concern does a little bit of this kind of stuff. This is something, again, we have not had a vision or resources for homeless.
Right.
The
I mean,
state has not provided. I agree with all those ideas. I think we absolutely should go in that direction because it gives people dignity. They
Right.
start working, there's accountability. We try to help people, but part of helping people is giving them a path to feeling. My husband works with refugees all around the world, and the worst thing you can do is just go give everything,
Right. No,
right? You have them do, right, so I agree. We need to do that.
I do have a question, this other recovery marijuana.
So everyone, we're running out of time.
I'm sorry.
We need to get Anthony a chance to speak.
Just
also.
real quick, how
We're
difficult
gonna
would it be
wind it
to
up
make
in 3 minutes.
hypodermic needles, like put a bounty on them, so there's an incentive to bring it back and legal exchanges? That's something that just keeps bouncing through my mind, is like, you know, we all can agree that it's really shitty to have hypodermics in your front yard and on playgrounds.
We pick them up daily.
And yeah, incentivize getting them back into the hands of people that can dispose of them properly with, you know, like an RF tag or a barcoding, so they can get tracked going forward.
You've been here last month.
Really? Seriously?
Well, thank you. I took way too much of your time. I really
Sorry.
appreciate it. Happy to come back and have more conversations. If you, I will, I'll stay because I'd love to hear what you have to say, but I will give cards out at the end, and if anyone wants to be on my email list and hear what we're trying to do, and you give me more ideas, yeah. So thank you all. Thank you all. Yeah.
Wow,
Okay, so I did bring some brochures and I gave you guys a little bit of idea of like why I'm here. I'd say I have my own political views and stuff like that, but I feel like part of what we do kind of folds in with your concerns in a way. I know that there's a lot of home ownership and a lot of these people who are on the streets or low-income folks really impact your lives or your properties or your families or whatever. Those are serious concerns. And those are some of the same things that we see in the community and are really important to us. So I'm from Rosewood Family Health Center. We're a community clinic right here, just a few blocks away, right next to the Goodwill. I first wanted to say about opioids and drug addiction and pills and doctors and that kind of thing. When you mentioned that, that was something that kind of came up for me. And just so everybody knows, it's kind of like a thing that goes along with clinics and shopping for doctors to see where they can get their meds and that kind of thing. For us, it's important for us to push back against that idea. When people visit us at intake, they're definitely not going to get any kind of prescription meds at all. And once they get established with a primary care provider, there's a very, very low likelihood that they'll ever get prescribed that. That's not what we do at our facility. We definitely make a big effort to avoid doing that. It's not something that, even if somebody's been on it for a while, we make sure at every step of the process at intake with the patients that they understand that that's not what we're about, and there's a high likelihood that they'll never get that prescription. So that's something that's really important to us. So we are a federally qualified healthcare center, and so what that means is we try to serve communities that are underserved or communities with lack of representation. And so for us, it's really people who don't fit into normal healthcare settings, people from the streets, people with mental health issues. And what we do is, instead of just being a doctor's office, we're a place where we can connect you to resources. We have a service care coordinator who will develop plans for you to get into housing eventually. What we see is waiting lists for 3 months, 4 months, a year, 3 years for people to get into housing. And where do they go until then? What happens? So we sit down with these individuals and help them develop plans for employment, for childcare, and connect them with community resources to help them become stabilized. Added benefits to patients that we have in-house that don't get billed to the individual are we have a registered dietitian in-house that will sit with you if you have issues around food insecurity or with your diabetes or something like that. We'll sit and do a warm handoff from your primary care provider, and we'll sit with you and connect you to food resources, food pantries. We have an emergency pantry in-house, and we'll talk to you about how to feed your kids properly, how to feed yourself properly in order to maintain your health. We have, I heard a lot about the mental health aspect. So we have a psychiatrist in-house that's a billed service, but we also have a behavioral health counselor that will meet with you for 30 minutes. If something comes up either during intake or with your primary care provider, we can do a warm handoff, and we have little counseling rooms throughout our clinic, and we can sit with somebody for 30 minutes a couple times in a year. There's some people where they might need a little extra help, but if they're, have anxiety because they're contemplating going into rehab, or that it's a new mother who's going through postpartum, who just needs to connect with somebody and feel that sense of caring or that sense of community, we have behavioral health counselors that will meet with you, and you're not going to get billed extra, and that's part of our integrated services that we offer. We have a social worker that has all those resources that can connect you to filling out applications, getting into rehab, getting you maybe understanding specific programs by gender, or so if you're a woman who's a repeated, has a lot of crime history, and you're also addicted, there's very specific programs that can work to get you into them. So we understand that there's social determinants to your health, and that's a big thing for us. And at the intake, we talk to people beyond gathering your normal health history and your prescriptions and all that. We talk to you like, do you feel stable in your job? You know, are you hungry? Do you have issues paying for your rent or your utilities? And when that comes up and they feel that connection with an organization, then we're able to connect with them and connect them to other resources. And as an outreach worker, my big passion and what's really helped me feel motivated for my work is that I'm seeing a bunch of organizations doing what they can on the ground level with the funding that they can pull together. You know, you're talking about state funding and money coming in, but you can pass a bill and say, here's a chunk of money, but how is it actually hitting the ground? And there is a lot of help coming from Multnomah County, but you know, beyond that, there's not a lot of organizing that's happening across county lines statewide to address the homelessness issue. But there are specific organizations that, like Southeast Works off of Foster, that they're about employment, but if you walk in and say, I don't have an ID, I don't have housing, I'm dealing with addiction, I have a criminal background,